And following U.S. President Trump's threat to take back Bagram air base in Afghanistan, Afghanistan's Taliban government has said that while it seeks constructive relations with all states, it won't give an inch of its soil. A senior Taliban official has now even suggested that the Taliban are ready to resume suicide attacks in order to defend their land. Well, the announcement was made by Deputy Head of the Taliban's General Directorate of Intelligence, Tajbir Jawad, who informed about the decision in a recorded message aired on Taliban-run national television. Jawad said that their fighters had carried out suicide bombings to seize power in Afghanistan even in the past, and they would do so again if it was necessary to preserve their rule. The Taliban deputy intelligence official vowed that he was ready to be blown into smithereens for Taliban survival. He said that Taliban fighters had strapped themselves with explosives in the past to bring their system into power, and they would readopt the tactic against occupation and anyone who attempted to destroy that system. Jawad made these remarks during a memorial event in Paktia province. He did not mention Donald Trump, he did not mention the US, but his warning of suicide attacks, it coincided with the US president's comments that talks with the Taliban were ongoing about a possible American return to Bagram, once the largest US military base in Afghanistan. Now, Jawad, a senior member of the Haqqani network, is also known as the mastermind of suicide attacks. He was appointed Deputy Intelligence Chief after the Taliban took power in August of 2021. He has repeatedly defended suicide operations since then. In the month of March, he told Taliban suicide bombers in Kandahar that such tactics would again be used if required to protect the Taliban regime. Now, before sweeping into power in 2021, the Taliban used suicide bombers for 20 years to attack US, UK and Afghan troops. Taliban insurgency and the insurgents, they used two types of attacks against the Western presence. One was victim-activated improvised explosive devices, IEDs, and the other was suicide bombings. Many of the attacks in Afghanistan were carried out by children, some even as young as 9 years of age. Taliban used religion and social engineering to radicalize these attackers. And of course, the promise at the end was of paradise after death. In 2022, Taliban had announced a battalion of suicide attackers as part of the National Army of Afghanistan. The group had then elaborated how martyrdom brigades would fall under the control of the Ministry of Defense and would be used for special operations. The battalion was, however, dissolved in March last year, with fighters being transferred to Army's Special Forces Command. In December of 2022, Taliban honored their suicide attackers by putting up a list of names on the wall of the Hamza Suicide Bombers Battalion in Kabul. All right, joining me live on the broadcast now is Lynn O'Donnell, a journalist and author from London. Lynn, of course, the Taliban is all too familiar with these attacks. The US and UK are all too familiar with these attacks. What kind of implications would it have with this latest threat?
I think the Afghan people are also very familiar with suicide bombing as a tactic of war. It was very usefully and horrifically deployed throughout the war, mostly by the suicide squad, as you describe it, deployed by the Haqqani network, which is the most violent offshoot of the Taliban and is also closely aligned with Al-Qaeda. Well, it remains to be seen. You say that and echo what the Taliban said a while ago about disbanding it, but I don't think they've ever disavowed the use of suicide bombing as a tactic. So, yeah, you've got an incredibly pliant and now ignorant, uneducated population. that are beholden to whatever the brutality of the regime wants them to do. So, yeah, why wouldn't it be a tactic? Yeah.
Yes, and it is very intrinsic, to the Taliban framework of functioning and their own ideology to carry out these kind of attacks. But do you feel this threat, as of now, coming from Jawad, it has any jurisdictional limitations for the Taliban?
There are no jurisdictional limitations for the Taliban on any level. The Taliban is closely aligned with Al-Qaeda. That's like the salt and the sea. There's no separating the two. With Hamas, Hezbollah, it's very, especially the Kandahar faction around the supreme leader is very stoically and assiduously supported financially and militarily by the Iranian regime. Russia, as you know, has recognized the Taliban as the official government. China has put a lot of investment effort over decades into the Taliban and is now hoping to reap the benefits through the mining sector. What can be the downside?
No, I understand what you're saying. And, you mentioned China. Let me just take it to the other side, that China has a nuclear buildup in Xinjiang, in the province, and that is very near. Of course, it connects with Afghanistan through the Warkhan corridor and the Bagram air base. Of course, there is a link there. Will Trump's Bagram ambitions, do you feel those can turn in this volatile region? Can they turn this region into a flashpoint for US-China rivalry?
Oh, it already is, I think. The Americans have been talking with the Taliban for a long time. And one of the points of interest is business, and the business is of mining. Rare earths and strategic metals are very dear to the American negotiators' hearts, and China has already been in there for a long time. What the Americans have been saying to the Taliban is, we want China out and we want exclusive access to the minerals sector of Afghanistan for American companies. They've also said that to Central Asian neighbours like Uzbekistan. I'm hearing from officials there that the Americans are making the same conditions. So this is nothing new, nor are Trump's comments about taking control of Bagram. Bagram is not as has been reported, 1 hour from the nuclear facilities of China. It's a long way away. It may be 1 hour from the China border. China's nuclear facilities are in Lok Nor, which, yes, is in the Xinjiang desert, but it's not that close. I think that the reporting that we've seen that the Americans want to station troops at Bagram is also exaggerated. What the discussions centre around, and have done for a long time, is counterterrorism capacity. The Americans want to be able to use Bagram to do surveillance, to control terrorist groups that they think may threaten regional and global stability. What is not written into that equation is the fact that the Taliban has transformed Afghanistan into a safe haven for almost 24, very well documented, I might say, by the United Nations Security Council, proscribed terrorist and jihadist groups. The Taliban is playing a double game here. What we don't know is what's written in the secret annexes of the deal that Trump himself did. So Trump did the deal to pull out of Afghanistan and to allow the Taliban to take control. And now what? He wants it back? Come on.
Lynn, your points are well taken. Thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast, sharing all your insights. That was Lynn O'Donnell joining us.
Thanks for having me.